What else can I say? Everyone was gay. Well, of course, of late, there's an awful lot of swapping, isn't there? Yeah, race swapping, gender swapping, and of course, sexual orientation swapping. It's a few more words added in that one, but nevertheless, and all wrapped up in the supposed ideals of representation and whatnot, as it's an important and serious issue, reduced to the superficial, pathetic nature of just skin and genitals is all anyone will ever be. Yeah. So, this story's a little bit old now, but it encompasses the trends of things and referring to the idea of the superficial nonsense that is seen as some sort of important aspect or ideal, and yet all it is for a brief mention in certain media sites that have no care for comic books whatsoever and do not deliver sales. And you'd have to go all the way back to the death of Superman being a gimmick that brought in a lot of attention and produced a DC Comics graphic novel in the collection of that story to be quite a high seller. But since then, the latest would be that the Tim Drake Robin is gay. Yeah. And then not long after that, apparently, Superman will be gay too. No, not Clark Kent, but his son, Jonathan Kent, who was an interesting addition to the Superman story in that it presented Superman as a father, and having since long since been married to Lois Lane and all that. And it was a pretty cool introduction. And for a while there, Superman was almost on top. It was becoming a really good series. And then they stupidly threw him away and dropped him into the hands of Brian Michael Bendis, who prematurely aged the Jonathan Kent character. And so all that wholesome goodness and Superman's fatherhood and whatnot was pretty much just put on the back burner. And so then there was this future state business of that Jonathan Kent would be the future Superman, which, it stands to reason something like that would occur. And so there you go. But all of a sudden now he's going to meet some gay character and discover that he's gay too, apparently. Yeah. Well, he's a relatively new character still, so you could argue that this was something he hadn't given much thought about. I mean, what with being prematurely aged and everything. But there was already a story about his first crush and whatnot. You see, in keeping with the old original story of Superboy being a member of the Legion of Superheroes way back when that was Clark Kent, which I've got to admit, I've never been a fan of the idea of Superboy, except in this one aspect that he could have possibly gone to the future and been a part of this teenage team with other teenagers and have all these adventures. And that would be fine. But it was always a bit of a problem when you have Superboy having adventures in his own timeline, and then suddenly Superman appears and everyone's like, "Oh, who's this?" Well, it's Superboy grown up. So later on, when there were other Superboys, whether it was Connor Kent and all that, and then now his son, it probably works better. So they did, Brian Michael Bendis again, of him being in the future and meeting the Legion of Superheroes and all that. And, he developed a crush on Saturn Girl. Yeah. And she's still a girl, so... and it seemed to be pretty into her and everything, So, but still... I guess they'll toss it in that he's bisexual to get him there, I guess, But still a relatively new character. So there's some ground there where they could do this and wouldn't be, too far afield, as is the case with Tim Drake, who's been around for a couple of decades now and has long established romance, primarily with Stephanie Brown, who was one of the bad girls. Originally was a character called Spoiler and all that. But her and Tim it's pretty much it's one of those things. Superman's always with Lois Lane, Batman. I mean, I know there's Vicky Vale and Talia al Ghul and all that, but really, Selena Kyle's going to be the ultimate love of his life. So on and so forth with that. And such is the case with Tim Drake and Stephanie. So, yeah, take a look at that, huh? Yeah. Well, when a man kisses a woman like that, he's got to be gay, right? That's just got gay written all over it. Come on. So, yeah, it's really stupid. And after a certain amount of time has passed, it's just the superficial, tawdry, cheap, gimmicky thing that it is, and nothing more. Which is insulting to the supposed ideal you claimed would imply in this activity. But it's nothing new, of course. I mean, Marvel did it with Iceman and that sort of thing. But here for DC, Alan Scott was one that they switched. Now, this was back when they did it with a parallel universe. They redid their Earth 2, and this time they were going to make them all young and living in contemporary times, and all the World War II stories would be abandoned, and instead they came together against an invasion from Apocalypse and that sort of thing. And reading the series, there were some interesting concepts in it and stuff like that, but it seemed to me that the sexual orientation of Alan Scott was a last-minute shoehorned in element of it, because it just wasn't very good. But still, it's this alternate timeline thing, and who's to say, and all that. The odd thing about it is that with Alan Scott, it was already established that his son, who is a superhero Obsidian, was gay. Now, this was a character that wasn't initially gay, so I guess you could say that's a swap too, but I don't know how much detail went into it. It seemed for a good long while that they just established that was the deal with him. But who knows Obsidian outside of the comic book world, So to say Green Lantern's gay and have that, gimmick for, again, certain media sites and whatnot, reporting it to people who will never read comic books. But it gets spread around a bit, and they think that amounts to anything, and it really doesn't. But that's why they did it. So beyond that, what's the new Green Lantern story and all that? Well, not much. So now with the forthcoming HBO Max Green Lantern series they're going to have Alan Scott in it, and they say, okay, he's gay. Well, the problem being is that this will be the original Alan Scott, who was not gay. He fathered 2 children and all this, and was never portrayed as being a homosexual, despite being decades old, almost as old as Superman. So suddenly he is. It was one thing when it was this alternate universe version of him, to the detriment of a gay character, Obsidian, which no one bats an eye at that, apparently. And now to do this just for to check off the box, and to do it. So the comic books then rewrote him too and just said, well, he was in the closet all that time. And so, oh, wow, that'll be a powerful story, because, yeah, we've never seen stories like that before. So that's what they do, and it's all very gimmicky and tawdry and cheap and quite insulting. I would see it as insulting to gay people, but what's done is done. The recent iteration of this is, of course, Tim Drake and Jonathan Kent. With Tim, no, that's too many years. It's just stupid. Just suddenly magically, a friend of his showed up he hadn't seen in a while, and he had a new haircut, and that turned him on or something. Get the hell out of here. So, but with Jonathan Kent, he's still relatively new, so I guess you could just throw that in there that, I guess, in keeping with the Saturn Girl romance, you have to assume that he's bisexual and says, I want to play on the other team for a while. And so it doesn't quite fit with the idea of how absurd it is with Tim Drake than it would be with Jonathan Kent. But come on. It's just for back to just being a superficial, little box that's checked and nothing else. There's no real thought about beyond that, and it doesn't really matter because I mean, I think for all intents and purposes, DC Comics is over. Like I said, they had that one moment there where after Rebirth and stuff, and it almost seemed like they were coming back and they had a shot because Marvel had already committed suicide, narratively anyway. And you had this shot there, and then they threw Superman away to Brian Michael Bendis, who wants to be a movie producer or some crap like that, so he doesn't care about it. Yeah. Well, anyway, there you go. Everything's a joke. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness, so many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.